Hello and welcome to Opinions Plus. Nature or nurture? That's the idea today. I'm going to just speak to. There's a lot of controversy about it, a lot of thought about it. It was raised in conversation yesterday. Um, and, it depends on who you're talking to. What age group are you talking to? There's a lot of different aspects of this concept. Religious concept is extremely important when people are talking about these things. The eternality of our conduct and what we do, how we act, where it leads us. It's not all just for the moment. There's many people who believe in eternal life, and there's other people who don't. But where do morals come from? How do we develop our reaction to fright or flight? The whole concept of what we do, how we do it, is built on nature or nurture. Are we, there's old stories about, Tarzan is one of them, but, people who have lived in the woods and been raised by wolves and all types of things. But in everybody's normal world, we don't know too many people who have been, raised in Africa and raised by apes or raised by wolves or whatever. Some people we may consider apes or we may consider wolves, but they aren't. They're human beings, and but they raise children. And how do these children grow? One of the thoughts that always cross my mind is you have a family of five or whatever. And, they're raised with good ethics, good moral fiber, good social trend, except for maybe one or maybe two. And what happened there? They're raised by the same people, exposed to the same premises, the same, if they're a Christian family, if they're not a Christian family. Is it just because Christian families believe in God and God created morality that all Christian families raise good kids? Well, that's obviously not true. I brought up in one of the clips previously about when I worked in probation, about a woman who tries to raise her five boys, and they're all in prison except one. And she was working or trying to work with me with um, limited resource, I'll put it that way, to save the youngest from that life. She was not a criminal. She worked in a ShopRite. I think it was a ShopRite or a supermarket anyway. And, she tried to make a decent, regular life. The children, not so lucky. Prison was in their cards. Was it because of the nurturing that she gave them? Didn't seem likely. Was it the nurturing that the neighborhood gave them? That seemed more likely. Was it part of their genes? I didn't talk to her about the father. The father was not there in the household, as in many households. And that has a nurturing element. The omission of responsible people. Now, in some cases, that could be just the opposite. The addition of people into a community, into a household, can cause problems. My belief, or my thinking, is there's a mixture of nature and there's a mixture of nurture. Nurture certainly has impact. You are raised in an environment. You are taking those ideas into you, whether it's from your family, whether it's from the neighborhood, whether it's from the TV, whether it's from a YouTube clip, whatever it's from. You're allowing yourself to be impacted by these views. That's nurture. I don't have to cradle you. I don't have to, rock you and help you. And although those things add to the value of the experience or the trust that you're given uh, to those who you raise. They look at you with trust. You provide them with food and shelter and all these things, and therefore give them, you're trying to raise them. It's a logical premise, even in a young person's mind, that they're learning to achieve or accept or expect, some type of positive response, like food when they're hungry or shelter when they're in the rain. When they're sick, you take them to the doctor in the normal way of things. But there are extenuating circumstances, and you look at different cultures around the world as totally different. You cannot just look at your own culture, your own environment, and say this is nurture or nature. It takes a bit of thought. The genes that people talk about, if you're spawned by a bad person, are you going to be bad? When I was in high school, there was a teacher, and it was a Catholic school, so you got taught religion. And part of it was that, yes, there's original sin. You have to overcome these things that are part of your heritage. There are others who, just don't look at that at all, but looked at the nurture even from a religious perspective, because we were taught at that time by nuns and by priests in the Catholic Church. So, these people did believe, many of them did believe, of the influence of the nurturing. But it was not isolated. So the religious aspect of it gets confused with the regular, everyday needs, the hierarchy of needs to produce whatever we are going to be as, functioning people. And even as children, we're part of a society. Just because when you become adults, you become a responsible person? Well, that's not always true, and you know that. Everybody knows that. Most people do, not everybody. Some never grow up. Some are impacted by mental illness. Some are impacted by health. Some are impacted by laziness, certain cardinal sins, as they used to call them. I haven't heard that term in quite a while. A lot of things go out of vogue, and you just, but it's the same old shtick. These things don't change in the human society. But my position is that there are characteristics that you can inherit from, and it doesn't have to be on a metaphysical level, because I talk to people who I don't know who believe in, a spiritual end or not. Some do, some don't. I think most people have a spiritual side to them. But I'm not going to speak about, one faith or another faith, and that's another story altogether. They have all types of stories about, how evil came into the world and all this. But the fact that evil is in the world, the fact that children grow up to be decent people, within and outside of a faith structure. There's many things that happen in people's lives that influence them. But their tendency, their base, their understanding, in the Christian community, we can call it the light of Christ. In others, it's a sense of spirituality that, I look at in a universal perspective, not just as a Christian, but as a person who, looks into science and looks into the world, this miraculous world we have, which one aspect I do not accept, is that all this is just a matter of chance. This is beyond chance. However it works, because I am not a creator being. If I were a creator being, I wouldn't have this conversation with anybody. I would know. But I don't know. It's only speculation. It's only an understanding about how we develop into mores, into how we develop our character, into how we develop our drive for goodness. When I say people know what goodness is, I think that's an inherited thing. That is part of us. That's not separate. It's just not separate. You can rationalize things, you can balance things out, you can do all kinds of violence and in a sense that say, okay, well, I'm doing it for this reason or that reason. But we all know that it's much better not to have the violence. We all know that it's much better to live in peace by the stream and sing songs to our kids. That's just the way it is. Even the bad guys know it. Even everybody knows that. But we don't always live to that. There's other things that influence us. So nurture and nature, there are elements of both in the human species. It's our job, and the nurture is ever present. It may be the dominant force because you can have people in a bad circumstance see that it's a bad circumstance. Where did that come from? They weren't taught it, but they found that it was against their feelings, against their beliefs. It was the antithesis of what they felt as a quality thing. That's the inherent part of it. That's the nature part of it. Christianity talks about, the natural man and all this, which is not a positive thing. But that's a whole nother story. But I do think that we are part of a natural element, which we have the awareness, whatever faith-based situation we are, that we have the inherency to know that we are decent. We have a decency to us. We want to be happy. We want to go to the good. We don't want to be upset. We don't want to be angry. We don't want to be sad. We are sometimes that, but we don't want it. What we want is to be content, comfortable, aware, feeling good about ourselves and the family, smiling, not hateful, not angry, not, these things are part of us, and that's part of the nurturing element of what life is about. So I know there's no one answer, and this topic can go into many, many segments, but I just wanted to address it in some basic terms, especially when you're parents and you're looking to the future. Your influence is tremendous. There may be a natural tendency for something which you may have a difficult time ironing out in your children or yourself even. But the nurturing is tremendously important. Nurture to the good. Avoid these things that are horrible. Try to anyway. Explain them. Talk about them. Communicate. Engage in conversation, even at an early age, is my view. And the nurturing will go far to become a better society, a better person, a better overall world. And it's getting complicated. It's always been complicated. It's getting more complicated. There's 9 billion of us out there. Much more difficult to deal with all these different minds unless we struggle to come and accept the goodness in all of us. Thanks for listening. Have a good day. If you like what you hear, you want to subscribe, please do. Hit the like button if you like what you see. Send the link on to somebody if you think it has some value to them. And comment. Always comment. It's good for you, it's good for the reader, and it's appreciated. Thanks for listening. Have a good day.